Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hobby Homestead. In today's video, I wanted to talk to you about some early edible plants, either perennials or ones that you have to sow every year, that are just really early and ready to eat before anything else in the garden. I grow in zone 5B or 6A, depending on what map you look at, and I'm in southwestern Ontario in Canada. And our winters are to the point where you can't grow food in the winter without a heated greenhouse, heated and lit. It's not necessarily the cold that gets you, it's the lack of sunlight. Our latitude means that the sun is just so weak, and so for the limited number of hours a day we get it, it's just too weak to grow food. However, a lot of food will overwinter in the garden, and this is the time of year, it's the end of April now, when the food will just start to burst forth from the ground. And sometimes this is in the form of perennials. In fact, often it's in the form of perennials. Other times it's something that you might have to sow in the fall to get that early crop in the spring. I'm going to go through some of my favorites, my favorite foods that are ready really early in the spring. You'll notice that a lot of these are perennials. Some of them are wild plants. I do some foraging, but what I love to do is try to cultivate some of those wild perennial plants in my own growing space so I don't have to go far. So it's all here and ready for me when I need it. Right now I'm in one of my herb garden spaces, and I want to show you some of the earliest herbs that you can get out of your garden. This is lemon balm. Lemon balm is, it has a tendency to spread where you don't want it, so I recommend keeping it contained. This is actually not contained, like it could spread out into my lawn, although I do keep the edges of this garden really well cut back. Just cut the flowers off if you can, if you're going to grow lemon balm, so that it doesn't spread to wild spaces. But I use this so much. I keep harvesting this to the ground as it grows. I use the leaves in tea. Really love lemon balm tea, and it is one of the earlier tea plants that come up for me. This is oregano. Oregano is one of the earlier ones to come back. In fact, sometimes you can dig through the snow and find the leaves are still green. Thyme can be like that, although my thyme usually gets pretty dried out and brown through the winter, and it hasn't quite bounced back yet. And right there we have lovage. Lovage is a perennial that tastes a lot like celery, like a lot like celery. And whereas celery can be a little bit trickier to grow, it has specific moisture requirements. You have to keep it well watered. Lovage has no such requirements. It is a workhorse in the garden. It comes back every year, and it comes back early. So this is our earliest celery of the season right here in our lovage. There are a couple perennials here that I recommend for early spring harvesting. One is rhubarb. Now this one's pretty small still. It depends on your spring and how warm it is early on, how soon the soil warms up. Last year we had some rhubarb that was ready to be harvested by mid-April. And actually when you forcing rhubarb is where you put a cloche or a big bucket or something over top of your rhubarb, forces it to grow nice and tall really fast because those leaves are looking for sunlight. When we force our rhubarb, we can actually be eating it in like the end of March, which is really early, and it makes the stalks tender, extra sweet. If you're not going to force it, then it's more like a mid to late April harvest. This year was a very cold spring, and there's nothing harvestable yet, but I bet in one more week, our rhubarb patch that's over there has 12-inch long stalks already, so that'll be ready in about a week. And then the other thing is horseradish. Now, I'm going to pull one of these up because I don't want them here. Horseradish is one that I planted in a pot. I just dug this up actually because it escaped my pot. I try to keep my horseradish contained because it will spread and be very difficult to control, like this one did. There's actually another little one here. It's fine. We really like horseradish, and it's pretty easy to process. You just clean it, you grate it up, put it in a food processor, whatever you want, and then put it in your fridge, or put it right on your meat. So horseradish is great for early in the spring and one of our first harvests, but of course once it's an established perennial, it doesn't matter what time you harvest it. You can harvest it anytime you need it throughout the year. Even in winter, this will still be good in the ground. Horseradish is a great early perennial edible. One of the first perennial green things that pops up for the garden for me, usually in like early March, as soon as the snow's gone, you can see these, is a specific kind of green onion. This is Egyptian walking onion. Now, these ones were a flower last fall or last summer. They had little bulbils, like with onion flowers or garlic flowers of any kind. They'll eventually form just a bunch of teensy tiny little bulbs, and then those will drop into the ground and grow if nature is left to its own devices. Now, with Egyptian walking onions, they have these little bulbils form at the end of a stalk, and then they tip over and they plant themselves in the ground like this. And then this will grow up, and then at the top of their stalk will be a bunch of these, and they'll tip over and they'll plant themselves. That's why they're called walking onions. They are a hardy perennial in my area, yet they don't spread to a dangerous degree. They're really easy to control, and they do grow to a nice sizable size. So these are nice, strong smelling onion. Wow, this is making me want onion. So Kim actually can't eat alliums. If she eats too many of them, then she gets a really upset stomach. And so we don't even grow onions. The white onions are the worst for her. She can handle a bit of garlic, so I still grow a bit of garlic, and I like to keep garlic like roasted in my freezer so I can just grab cloves as I want to eat them. But perennial green onions are great for us because if we want just a little oniony flavor in something, or if I do, I don't have to worry about maintaining a supply of this in the garden or in the pantry. This just does its own thing. And they start out really tiny like this. You let these grow through the season and you'll get something big. And they are just littered throughout this food forest hill right here. Chives are another really early onion family plant, and they aren't as early as the Egyptian walking onions, but when they do come up, they are gorgeous. They have beautiful pink flowers sometime in May, mid to late May. You can use the greens on your baked potato or in your salads, and then the flowers are dual purpose because you can also use the flowers to make infused vinegars that are to die for. If you're lucky enough to live near a wild space and you are a sustainable forager, then of course you can make use of the beautiful wild leeks, also called ramps. I've planted some here, and of course my mom's farm, which is just 10 minutes down the road, she has this big sugar bush, and there are tons of ramps in there. So we harvest sustainably and make sure that the population of ramps is still doing good. I can't help myself but weed while I'm talking. Depending on the season. I mean, last year we had these late March, early April, and this year it's more of a mid-April to late April harvest, but still, wild leeks or ramps are a great early edible perennial. And then if I just move slightly to the side, this is wild ginger. Wild ginger is a shade-loving native ground cover. They have these amazingly mysterious and moody dark purple flowers or dark maroon flowers that like hang low into the soil. They're so cool. But also, the roots are edible. I've used them to make tea before. You can use them sparingly in your cooking like any other kind of ginger, but also they're just a beautiful ground cover. These are just the leaves beginning to unfurl. And these are harvestable now since you just have to take a chunk of the rhizome or like the root pieces here, and you can use those in your cooking. Another great hardy perennial plant that gives you really early spring greens and shoots is sea kale. Let me show you what it looks like. So right now it's just emerging from the ground, and really soon we're going to start harvesting this. These young shoots here are excellent in stir fries. They're like maybe a mix between a mild broccoli and a kohlrabi. They're crispy, they're not chewy at all when they're young, really flavorful, great in stir fries. And I said I wasn't going to make dinner tonight because we have so many leftovers, but now I really want to stir fry, seeing all these early spring things in the garden. So they grow on these really cool, I don't know, what is that? Is that a tuber? A rhizome? Anyway, these grow up out of the soil, and so they just look really cool when they're growing. And eventually, these leaves are going to be as big or bigger than my rhubarb leaves. They get huge, and I do like to keep them thinned a little bit because they'll just become a big ground cover mat in my garden, and I want room for other things to grow up. But they are really hardy, they are really delicious. They are one of the first things to come up in the garden, and I highly recommend sea kale. One of the earliest berries that you can grow in my climate is currants. These are a pink champagne currant, and the flower buds are starting to really fill out. It's going to be probably mid-May before we start to see berries, and then probably actually late May before we start to get good harvests off of our currants. but they are a little bit earlier than the gooseberries, which are over there. I have a couple different kinds of gooseberries, but the gooseberries do leaf out first before anything else, so I love having them in the garden for that reason. And then the haskaps are starting to flower, but we probably won't get ripe berries on these until the end of May either. There are also some wild plants that you can forage really early in the season, and some of those will come up in your garden as weeds. For example, this is burdock. I'm going to use this burdock root in tea. You can also roast it and cook with it. So burdock is a pretty early one to emerge in the spring. Another one is nettles. I've got some stinging nettles in my garden right now. This is a wild plant. It's self-seeded here. Do not touch it with your bare hands. It will sting. But once you cook it down, all the sting is gone, and it's a really nutritious green. So you can use it in soups or you can make teas with it. I like stinging nettle tea a lot, so that's what I'm going to be using this for. Spinach is one of the earliest things that I get out of my garden. This spinach was actually sowed on September 1st last year, and it's the first stuff that comes up lush and green in the spring. I also have spinach in the garden that I sowed this spring, but it is like this size. The leaves are the size of a fingernail at best. But this spinach I have gotten 3 good harvests off of. In fact, you should have seen it last night. I filled a giant harvest basket with spinach leaves. Spinach is definitely one of the earliest things that you can harvest in the year, but you have to sow it the fall before if you really want it to thrive in the spring garden, at least where I'm growing. If you live in a different climate than me, then you have to learn your own way to grow spinach. Here, our springs go from freezing cold to super hot with very little time in between. Spinach likes it cool, very cool. However, if the soil is still freezing, obviously it's not going to grow. Even though it only needs I think 2 degrees Celsius to germinate, it needs more than that to really grow and put on lush leaves that you're going to be able to harvest from and make lots of salads from. But if you plant it in the fall, it will overwinter. If you have really harsh winters where you are you're regularly below minus 15 degrees Celsius, especially if you don't have consistent snow cover, that's another thing. Snow will insulate it, keep it safe. But if your snow is melting and then you're getting lots of freezing rain, tough winter weather, cover it. Just cover it with a cold frame, a plastic row cover, or even just Tupperware containers, big storage bins flipped upside down, clear ones. And you can even harvest it through the winter. If you have enough growth from the fall, it will hold form through the winter. Sometimes the leaves will get a little bit soft, and at that point you just stop and wait until things warm up, and then it'll grow like wild. Spinach, the #1 early spring crop for me. This right here is sorrel. Sorrel is a perennial. It's a leafy green. It's got a really lemony taste, so I like to put just a few leaves at a time in a salad. I think some people will also saute it and eat it that way. It's pretty lemony, but it's a great perennial herb that comes up nice and early. Did I say herb? Is it an herb or is it a leafy green? I don't know. You tell me. Anyway, sorrel. It's a great plant that comes up nice and early, and you can start harvesting from it in April for me, where I'm located. There's one other thing that usually is ready to harvest this time of year. There's none up right now, but it was this time last year when I saw my first one of the season, and that is morels, morel mushrooms. This is a forageable thing if you're very lucky and you know where to find some, and I am very, very lucky because they grow in my backyard in suburbia. And we usually get our morels harvesting them in May, so throughout the first couple weeks of May. It's an amazing wild mushroom to have access to. I'm so thankful to have them. I really hope they come back this year. And other than that, I think that's pretty much it in terms of the vegetables and plants that I am harvesting this early in the season. Again, we're zone 5B or 6A, and our spring season is a little bit volatile. We have been in kind of a deep freeze for much of April. Things are just starting to thaw. Things are now moving quickly. Everything has gone from just completely dormant to bursting with life in the matter of 1 week. And it's really exciting for my dinner plate. I'm getting really tired of eating the same old things that we've had all winter long, and I'm really looking forward to all these fresh spring goodies. Oh, and another one to look out for, although I think for us again, it's like mid-May usually when they're ready, mid to late May, but that's fiddleheads. We have a lot of them around here in our yard, also called ostrich ferns. That is the mature fern. The little immature fronds, as they start to emerge from their crowns, those are fiddleheads. They're a vegetable you can actually purchase in some specialty grocers, but it's actually a native perennial. So start looking for those now as well. That's another good early vegetable. Okay, I think that's really it. I'll probably keep remembering them as I keep walking through the garden and spotting things, but those are the big ones that I can think of right now. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Lets me know that you enjoyed this kind of content, so I know to make more of it. Please subscribe and join us as we grow together this summer. I'd love to see you in the comments. Drop a note to say hi and let me know who you are and where you're growing. Also, let me know what you're harvesting now, if anything. Do you stretch the boundaries? Do you do foraging? What are you harvesting in your climate? And if you're in a super warm climate, then you're probably harvesting a ton of things. But for those of us in this 43rd parallel zones 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, let me know what you're harvesting in April and early May. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope that you'll come and grow with us.